Good morning. Good morning. Gonna wait for a few more people. Hope you guys had a nice vacation. Um, I had a pretty nice vacation. Yeah. My parents, okay, so the Friday that the vacation started, just before the vacation started, my dad and my brother drove down from Washington. They arrived at California at my house at like 10 o'clock in the morning. So they drove in shifts. One of them was sleeping while the other one was driving, just going through the night. They picked up me and the dogs, and then we turned around and we drove immediately back. And we were back in Washington by like 7 a.m. on Sunday. So it was pretty insane. They basically drove all the way across the country and then just immediately drove back. And then we did the same thing last Friday. So, I did a lot of driving. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. First thing I wanted to do is I wanted to remind you that you are going to all of your classes today. There's a question: are there any new forges? I was out of my house, so I didn't have my forge, but I did get a bandsaw over the holidays, so I'm going to be using the bandsaw to do some more ornate hand work and things like that. So I'm excited about that. Okay, so today each class is half an hour, and you're going to the classes in sequence. So because it's in sequence, it's different from what you would normally do. So it's going to be first period, then second period, then third period, then fourth period, fifth. So it's not like all odds one day, all evens the other day. The class periods are half an hour. So this class ends at 8:30, and the passing period is only 5 minutes. So period 2 starts at 8:35. So just be aware of that. I also wanted to remind you there's going to be no Zoom room today, just because of the time. So please submit your attendance form. Okay? So submit your attendance form, please. All right. So, and one more announcement. I've decided on your final exam is going to be the first part of your IA. So either today or tomorrow, I will be typing out the details, and I'll post those so you guys can get started. All right. So I'm going to switch over to document camera. So today we are going to be focusing specifically on wireless networks. So we're talking about wireless networks. And so one of the things that IB wants you to know are sort of the implications of wireless networks to what is the impact that a wireless network has on our lives. So I'm going to talk about a few of those. Some of them you might not have thought about before. So what are the, so let's just talk about impacts of wireless networks on humanity. Okay, so there are a couple of health impacts. Okay, so the main health impact is going to be it's basically a distraction. Okay, and so this is really twofold. So one of the ways it's a distraction is in the car. Okay, so while driving, and so if you think about it, if we didn't have wireless networks, the cell phone network being an example of a wireless network, we would probably have less car accidents, right? Because people are texting while driving or doing that sort of thing. So it's a big distraction. Excuse me. Which actually causes people to die. So it's not a directly killing someone, but sort of indirectly. And of course, there are impacts of the because it's wireless, you can access it pretty much anywhere. And so that is starting to have an effect, of course, on mental health. All right, so you want to think about that. So, an example on an IB exam, sometimes they'll ask, like, what are the health impacts of wireless networks? And you would have something to say now. Now, when, like, cell phones came out, people were worried about if we're putting the cell phone next to our head, is it going to cause cancer? And at this point, there's no evidence for wireless networks causing cancer. At this point, okay, so the technology is fairly new. So, it's been around for maybe 20 years at this point. So, in the future, who knows what's going to become true, but I doubt it just based on my knowledge of physics. I don't see why the radiation isn't strong enough. We could also talk about environmental impacts. So, we could talk about what is the environmental impact of a cell phone tower. But one of the things is, if you think about a wireless network, a device that's on a wireless network is made to move around, okay? And if the thing is made to move around without being connected to anything, it's got to have a battery. So most things that are connected to wireless networks have a battery. And batteries have some chemicals in them that are not good for the environment. So I would say the main environmental impact is batteries, battery disposal. Okay, so how can we dispose of devices that are connected to wireless networks um, in a good way. And of course, there are a lot of social impacts um, in terms of work patterns. Okay, um, this is certainly true at college. Um, you know, that was one of the examples given in the textbook that I was reading. Um, Students are completely changing the way that they're studying because of wireless networks. Okay, a good example being sort of like the studying at Starbucks. Okay, you're on a wireless network. You're um, hanging out with your friends at Starbucks. You're, you know, connected to a wireless network. Okay, so that's all good. Okay, so what are the advantages and disadvantages of wireless networks? Okay, so we'll just do kind of pros and cons. I'm going to start out with the disadvantages. Okay, well, the first disadvantage is that it is slow. Okay, it's the slowest form, and we talked about why wireless networks are slow. It's because there's interference in wireless networks. So what that means is that you need to send the data multiple times potentially in order to make sure that the message has been received. You need error correction codes, things of that nature. So it is the slowest. Okay. It is the most insecure. All right. Because anyone can pick up that wireless signal and can potentially do something malicious with that signal. I'm curious, what do you guys name your Wi-Fi networks? Type the name of your Wi-Fi network into the chat. I'm really curious. My Wi-Fi network is called Bugnet. And then wherever I go, I have a habit of changing the name of other people's Wi-Fi network. So I'll like log into their router if I can, and I will change the name of their Wi-Fi network to another Bugnet, so that I'm up to like Bugnet 4. So there's Bugnet. I'm Bugnet 1. I think my parents are Bugnet 2, and I have two friends who have Bugnets 3 and 4. So, yeah. Okay, so yeah, it has a high error rate because of issues with transmission. It's less reliable. Okay. You guys have the most boring Wi-Fi names, I have to say. You know you can change that. Do you guys know how to change it yourself? Maybe we should have a video about that. Do you guys know how to do that? To log onto your router and change the name? Maybe if we have time today, I'll show you how to do that. You can also change the password, change the sometimes you can change the settings on the router to like if there are different bands, that can sometimes improve performance. You can make specific devices not be able to access the Wi-Fi network. That's fun. If you like, if you're, I should show you how to do that, because I bet if your parents are being annoying, you could log onto their router and then block their cell phone's IP address, stuff like that. I've done that before. Okay. And when I say it's less reliable, you can. That means that it's impacted by things like weather and, you know, and also another disadvantage is that it's incompatible with old stuff. All right. So, you know, if you have an old computer that has important documents on it, you're not going to be able to get those documents onto to another computer via a wireless network. Okay. So what are the advantages? Well, a main advantage is that it's cheap. Okay. Why is it cheaper? It's because that's because you are not laying down actual wires. Wires have metal. Metal is expensive. Okay, so it's pretty cheap. All right. It is flexible and convenient. It's easy to add devices to a network. It's easy to plan because there's no physical infrastructure. Okay? And also, it is the only way for some devices to connect. For example, an iPad or a cell phone has no other way of connecting to the internet except via a wireless network. Maybe there's a special dongle for Ethernet connection, but I'm not aware of it. Okay, so those are some of the advantages and disadvantages. All right, so I'll keep going. So now I want to talk about what do you need to access a wireless network. Okay, and there are some various hardware requirements, and there are various software requirements. Okay, so the first thing you need, okay, is you need, in terms of hardware, and I already talked about this, you need modems and you need routers. So a modem connects to the internet. A router takes information from the modem and sends it to different locations to different devices on your personal network. These come together most of the time these days, okay? So I guess back in the olden days, you had a separate modem, you had a separate router. Those were two different things. Together, they're almost always together nowadays. Wireless devices need antennas, okay? Just like a radio antenna, your phone has an antenna in it, your router has an antenna in it, so you have antennas for transmission and for receiving. So that's an important piece of technology. The antenna has to be designed properly. It has to be sensitive to different orientations of the signal coming in, things of that nature. Wireless networks often have what is called a repeater. Okay, so a repeater is basically, so what happens is your Wi-Fi, your wireless network signal, as it travels away from the source, okay, it gets weaker. The further away you are, the weaker it is. So what a repeater does is it listens to the signal and it just repeats the signal. So it's not connected to the internet directly, but just whatever it hears from the router, it just repeats it. So it basically boosts the signal and allows it to be transmitted a greater distance. Okay, and it goes both ways. So it's listening to devices that are trying to send information back to the router, and it's listening to the router sending information out to the devices. Okay. So these are being sold pretty commonly now. I don't know if does anyone have repeaters in their house where sometimes they're called a signal booster. They plug into the wall. Anyone have those? You also need to have a, wireless access points. So this is basically, again, my router is my wireless access point, but you could have additional wireless access points that are not actually routers. And an important thing is you have wireless network interface cards. So this is the hardware that basically allows your computer to, it powers the antenna, it listens to what's coming from the antenna. Okay. So what kind of software do you need? You're probably going to need a firewall. So a firewall controls what traffic is coming into your network, what traffic is not coming in. You are going to need a network interface card driver. Okay, so the network interface card driver is the software that runs the network interface card. I'm sure many of you have had to probably download drivers. It seems like the most common for me is for printers. Printers always have new drivers. But yeah, oftentimes you have to install the latest driver. You need what's called DHCP. And I'm blanking. Okay, so this is Dynamic Host. What does the C stand for? I'm forgetting. It stands for, configuration. Protocol. So what that does is when you log onto a wireless network, you are assigned an IP address. Okay, and the software that does that is called DHCP. You need some kind of antivirus or security software. So the firewall is determining what traffic goes in and what goes out. The security software is trying to detect things that are already there. Okay. You need an operating system that can go on a network. And lastly, you need a browser if you're going to surf the web. Okay. So yeah, this is all pretty basic. So we're gonna log on to my router in just a second. And see if we can hang on a second. I want to see if I can get. Oh, cool. Okay, so we're gonna log on to my router in a second. But I wanted to let you guys know. So now I'm blanking on what I was going to say. So we'll finish this lesson tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but Thursday. And then also on Thursday, I will explain the Networks 3 assignment. Okay. And so the Networks 3 assignment is pretty simple, but I just want to explain it. And then I'll also explain your final exam. Okay, so those are the 3 things you'll do. Remember, we are remember to submit attendance, please. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to log into your router if you don't know how to already. Okay, so typically your router is going to have so you log into your router by going to the IP address /192.168.0.1. So that is typically the IP address of your router. So let's see if that. So use your internet browser. Let's see if that works. Cool. So here's the login page for my browser or for my router, excuse me. So if you connect to your router via Ethernet, you don't get the username and password, so you just automatically get access. So yeah, typically the username is admin, and then it has a password. The password is going to be a default password at first, but you can change it. So the default password is going to be in the instructions for your router. But like I said, you don't need this if you can connect to your router via Ethernet. Okay. So yeah, it's just got some stuff you can mess around with. So I don't know. I mess around with this stuff if my wireless network is not behaving how I want it to behave. So you can see firewall is there. There's a firewall tab. There's a wireless tab. Okay. So you can see I've got an access control. And you can see I've named my wireless internet BugNet. So anyways, fun task for you, if you would like to, is first of all, figure out and see if you can log into your router and change the name of your wireless network to something funny, okay? That's my for fun assignment for you today, if you haven't done that before. Okay? So that's my lesson. I will see you on Thursday. Bye.